Otherwise, we should leave.
The old killer washing machine's gonna get ya. We are talking Pipeline. This is a low-budget indie horror movie that is being put out by Wild Eye Entertainment and concerns some type of entity, some type of creature or monster that is living in the plumbing of this particular kind of building. What is the story? Well, essentially it focuses on a group of teens, young adults, whatever, however old they're meant to be, really, and they rent this particular house to go and have some type of getaway, and there's 7 or so of them. However, this house seems to be host to some type of entity where that lives in the piping, hence the name Pipeline, in the plumbing of this particular house, and it feeds on blood, and the house owners are feeding it some type of, anyone who basically comes in, they're kind of feeding this kind of entity, the unsuspecting, victims who happen to come in this house for whatever reason. And now we have this kind of group of, college kids, I suppose, that are going in there to party and, of course, come into contact with this creature. What'll happen? Well, you have to watch the movie to find out. So, what works in this movie? So it kind of goes into the killer appliances subgenre of movie in some ways, where we see, for example, a woman getting sucked into, a tumble dryer or a dish, washing machine, things like this. And although it's done on a very low budget scale, it's obviously silly but kind of fun, I gotta say. I like the idea of this kind of creature or entity, because you never really know really what's going on for the most of the movie, living in these kind of like these areas which can come up through obviously drains and things like this. So it's a fun, although silly idea that I kind of quite liked. There's 1 or 2 attempts here to have some practical effects. We kind of see it looks like some sort of oily kind of creature sort of coming towards our victims at a time. And again, for a low budget movie, I appreciated some of the kind of the effects here. And I think the intro of this movie is fairly strong. However, what doesn't work for the movie? Pretty much everything else. So the actual conceit of this movie, I've got to be honest with you, is a little mixed, and in regards to it, I don't think it makes a huge amount of sense. It's a low budget horror flick. It's easy to kind of rip these movies apart in some ways, but just to give you an idea of some of the kind of the illogical things that this film does, is that I don't quite understand how this creature is grabbing people. If it's coming through like a plug hole and stuff like that, obviously it cannot be very big, but we see it like cut, because we see blood coming out of someone's in the bath, for example, and all of a sudden they're kind of like bleeding and things. It's like, how is it doing this? Because it doesn't really make sense, because it's like, I would have thought maybe you would have gone for maybe an acidic type attack or something like that, but it seems to be physical in nature. And we have a scene where there's a woman like in the bath, but she's all of a sudden she starts bleeding out of her nose or mouth or something. And then like blood's on her hand. I think, well, how is this working? Because we don't really know. We just see blood some of the times, and like, so the actual again, maybe I'm thinking too much about this. The actual logistics of how this kind of like entity is working seem all over the place, and are just, whatever this scene that they want to do, it can just do that, be it a physical, we see like a humanoid kind of creature at times, or it just seems to be able to do whatever it wants for whatever this is required in the scene. So the monster to me didn't make a lot of sense. I also think there's how they, before we even get to our monster, how this movie is written, again, it just seems like silly at times and kind of like ill thought out. So we have our group of kids that are, they hear the pipes a bit sort of creaking around in the pipes, and they're like, you know how in most movies people will just kind of ignore that and go, oh, it's the pipes. Here they're all like really suspicious that something's moving around. I think you're in an old house that's not yours. If you hear the pipes creaking, surely most people will just assume it's just like an old house where the pipes keep creeping. Not these ones. No, they want to go and investigate and kind of see what's going on. It just seems like, well, you know, I know we've got the spooky music and we as the audience know that there's kind of like entity, but it doesn't make sense in the nature of the film. I also have to say that considering this creature is meant to be in like the drains and the sewer system, it never really, you would have thought it would produce smells. And you know, again, it was just a missed opportunity. You could have had to smell it because it's coming up through the kind of the dirty drains and things, but no. So there's just really kind of like, it doesn't seem this movie has been particularly kind of well thought out in regards to any type of real logic in the narrative, and they just want scenes to happen because that's what they want. That's where the movie wants to go. The acting is amateur. I have seen worse acting. I would say that, but obviously the acting here isn't brilliant. But it's kind of on level, I would say, with a lot of these kind of like wild eye films where, you know, I would get the impression people are either very early in their acting career or this is not a profession for them and it's just kind of like a group of friends making a movie. You know, the acting seems very kind of awkward at times. Some actors do better than others, but overall the acting is kind of a little weak. The storyline just seems to kind of like grind to a halt at times. There's an attempt here at to have a twist, but I don't really think it particularly works without kind of really spoiling anything for you here. It just seems a little contrived to me. The movie actually, unfortunately, ends up being quite dull, and we don't really see much in the way of effects. And again, it's a low-budget film, I appreciate that, but kind of maybe it could have been better thought out about maybe what was being done about this film and kind of how it could have approached this kind of creature. To me, it was a little bit of a missed opportunity. You could have almost have, you know, how you had the Creep Show 2, that raft, you know, the raft segment in that with this kind of blob. It maybe would have been beneficial to have something like that that kind of dissolves victims, but they didn't do that. To be honest, this was a little bit of a hard one to sit through. It wasn't particularly enjoyable. The storyline wasn't engaging. It didn't make a lot of sense. There's a couple of, I suppose, the inception of the idea is good, but it was weak overall. I'll give it a 3 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.